Get ready for a great show.
Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, I'm George Middleton, your host this evening on this podcast episode of Black Space Live. The topic of our discussion today, we're going to examine the question, is marriage a dying institution? However, before we get started, I would like to take this time to briefly encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this broadcast. In other words, don't be selfish with this content. Share the love. You can catch Black Space Live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and Spotify. And you can catch us on Anchor FM, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeart Radio. We have one of my favorite panelists today, and it looks like it is going to be a duet of sorts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back the beautiful, intelligent, and talented Doc Locks. How you doing, Doc?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Welcome back. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's always good to be here.
Yes. Doc, what do you think about this question? Is marriage a dying institution? How does that strike you?
I've been thinking about it for like 3 days. I think it might be. Yeah, I think it might be. And so I was listening to some foolishness. I love foolishness.
Okay.
And they were talking about, it's pop culture. So they were talking about Halle Berry's divorce and how it took 8 years to divorce. They had only been married for 2. And a person on that podcast was like, marriage is not the move. If you are wealthy and already established, then it's no point to getting married. Commitment ceremony, yes, but the exchanging of, or the uniting of funds and property and things like that is far too dangerous, is what they said. And in that moment, I was like, I get it. I totally get it. So, but I think the other piece to that is marriage is very hard, yet rewarding, but people now have so many options and so many ways to meet other people. It's harder to stick it out with someone forever. So they don't.
It does seem that long-term monogamous relationships are just not in vogue. For a variety of reasons, not just along the commitment reasons, but people seem to wait later. And so that cuts into this ability to build time together with one person. And then we're in a very instantaneous gratification culture. And then I'm just grabbing stuff out of the air. And then we're in this identity crisis of male and female. So we've got a lot of different variables going on.
When you say identity crisis,
the roles, the gender roles.
So I think in marriage, and then one of my friends described it best as he was going through a divorce. Marriage is a factory, right?
Okay.
And you work the factory line, and everybody has their job. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you have a job, right? And once you get married, it doesn't matter if he or she cooks as long as someone cooks. It doesn't matter who cleans as long as somebody does it. But whenever the person that has been identified as, with that role stops, then the factory line stops and stuff starts to back up. And things, don't really run as smoothly as they should. So I'm not really into gender roles because I don't care who cooks, right? I don't care who takes out the trash as long as it get done, right? I think this the smaller things like using each other's toothpaste and not squeezing the tube. Some people sleep with the TV on, some people sleep with the TV off, the temperature of the house. I think it's the day-to-day, the mundane that people don't really think about when they're courting or when they are talking about marriage. And they're very underwhelmed when they get into the routine of marriage, especially if they have children. So I think that's part of the difficulty. And nobody ever tells people what marriage is. And I remember when my marriage got hard, I went to my parents and I was like, well, why didn't you tell me this? Like, you told me everything about my child. You told me everything about the pregnancy and all the things that can happen. And when the child gets here, all the things that can happen. But you didn't tell me anything about marriage.
Right.
So I think that's another part of it as well.
Yeah, we're not educated. We're not educated in the facts about the reality of what marriage is. We just see the Prince Charming version still, the white picket fence version.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that we over romanticize, we as in the American culture, and I even said this earlier today, we over romanticize marriage, pregnancy, and this thought of the white picket fence and buying the house and all of these things, which all of them are stressful.
Yes.
But we don't look at the rituals that keep the people together. We don't look at the work and the patience that it takes to keep people together. Before we got on, I was telling my parents have been married for 50 years. They've been together longer than that because they met when they were like 16. So it's about 54 years. And they definitely have gender roles. But over time, it's kind of morphed into who does what best.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's how we should go into it, or do we wait 50 years to find our groove?
That's a really interesting nuance, approaching it from who does what best versus a gender role. That's interesting.
Yeah, especially when people, so if he and I make the same money, like 80,000 or 150,000, I'm not saying that he's not a provider, but the provision is not money, right? But if he's better with, being organized with the bills and paying the bills and making sure the money goes where it's supposed to go, then he should do that. I shouldn't, if that's not what I do, right? So I think people, because they waited so long to get married and they have all these things going into marriage, it makes it more difficult. Because we spend a lot of time alone before we get married. Yeah, we live by ourselves. We go grocery shopping by ourselves. We're managing money by ourselves. And marriage forces us to consider another person. And then we have to consider how we spend our money. So if we don't want to do all of that, then we shouldn't get married.
Don't get married.
Right. But nobody has that conversation before people get married. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's look at maybe some of the more superficial aspects of this discussion.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Who stands to lose the most or gain the most, maybe both and, in the institution of marriage? Which one benefits and loses the most?
So I will tell you what my mother told me. Um, so my mom and other women have said the first 10 years for women are the hardest. But after that, that's like a turning point for the husband to really appreciate who they are as a wife, as a mother, as someone who works, as someone who can think and make the house better. I think men initially benefit more or come out better in marriage than women do.
What makes it those first 10 years for the woman the hardest, according to your mother?
They have children. So, if we're doing this in a traditional way, my parents are very, very traditional. So she did all the cooking, she did all the cleaning, she took care of the children, and she still worked an 8 hour a day job. And I come from a very churchy family. So on Wednesday and Sunday, we were in church. And on Saturday, we were somewhere near the church for choir rehearsal, usher board, things like that. And those are the things that she took care of. And she did the hair, the girls' hair, until like turning 12. We went to the beauty salon or to a stylist. But that's a lot to take on. Um, and I mean, and she cleaned the house from top to bottom. And that's a lot to take on. And I think we say, like, when I'm single, it's fine. But when I add these other two people or more to that equation, that's a heavy workload. That's a heavy lift. Mm-hmm.
So does by that same equation, does the woman stand the most to lose as well then?
Well, there was an article when I got divorced a long time ago. There was an article that mapped out how long it takes to recover financially from divorce. For men, it was 5 years. And for women, it was 10 years, a decade. A decade. Okay. So it just depends. And I think people have gotten caught up in she's getting child support. But child support rarely pays all the things that the child needs, right? Even when I first left, I was getting about $3,000 a month. Sure, it took care of everything at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was 3, so we didn't need a lot. But as he grew, and he is a big kid, he played lacrosse, which is very expensive. He played golf, which is very expensive. And he played football. And all 3 of those sports require different things that have to be bought. So, and then, your food bill increases. But it's just a lot that goes with it. And women, more times than not, even in joint custody, women take care of the kids. So we're buying the clothes, we're buying the shoes, we're buying the food, we're paying for the field trips, we're paying for summer vacations and things like that. So it takes a lot to recover from divorce.
So what about this myth about, or this not, I don't know if it's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
It's spoken about a lot though, from the male perspective. The fear is as a man, I work for everything I get.
Mm-hmm.
And then my risk to getting married is that I have the potential to lose half of everything I work for.
So
speak to that.
That's so in most cases that is not true. With regular, ordinary people, that's not true. Although in my case, it was more than true. And now the way it depends upon where you live and the laws for divorce where you live. So I know in certain states, it's not like that. They'll give you a percentage of his pension or his retirement. And they look at how much both of people make and who's going to have the children. And then it's a percentage of income that goes to child support. Alimony is very difficult to get now, because now the courts are saying women make themselves intentionally poor. So if you do that, you're not awarded anything. I want men, and this is not shade, but most of them don't have anything, right? Like, okay, you might have a house. Okay, you might have $20,000 in the bank, but most people don't have more than that. When we hear the economic reports, they say that as Americans, we aren't saving, we don't have a lot of money in the bank, we're living paycheck to paycheck. So what is their fear? That they're going to have to pay health insurance for me for the rest of my life? Okay, that's a drop in the bucket. I think that is a trope that men use to psych themselves out of marriage, right? And as long as they believe it, and as long as they see, like Michael Jordan, Juanita took half. It's in the state of California or whatever state they were in that granted that. We're not in California and we don't have Michael Jordan money. So they don't have to worry about that.
Okay. So then this has can be further delineated by socioeconomic factors.
Mm-hmm.
The impacts of marriage and divorce can vary based on where you are on the socioeconomic ladder.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So everybody talks about being a high value man or woman. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But most people aren't, right? Just because you got a PhD or a master's degree, that doesn't make you high value. It's what you do with it, and then it's how you treat people, and how the environment that you put yourself in. That's what makes you high value, right? It's not about, oh, I have an MBA now, I'm high value. It's not how it works. It's the internal that makes people high value or not. And I don't think a lot of men, particularly Black men, grasp that concept very well. They think if they amass these degrees, and I think I've told you this, a doctor approached me in the DMs and was like, I think you're cute, whatever, but our first date, we're going to go Dutch. And I was like, we don't do Dutch over here. Okay, we do not. And then he was nice about it. And he was like, well, why don't you do Dutch? And I was like, because I have male friends. And if I can go out with my male friends and they pay for it, then why?
Why would I?
Right. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, what? You asking me out. I got to take some time out of my schedule. I mean, you do too. But you can't afford coffee? I don't even drink coffee. Like, if you took me to Starbucks, it'll be easy. I'll have a water.
Yeah.
That's
just
free.
the principle. Just the
Right.
principle.
So, yeah. But I think Black men right now, have a really inflated sense of self, is what I'll say.
Okay, we'll pin that and come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
That comment is a very interesting comment. However, your scenario brings up this additional thought, especially when a man finds a woman interesting. Men, of course, are visual creatures, right? Typically, the thing that interests us initially in a woman is not usually intellectually based. Would you agree with that, or would you think that? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all visual.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because women don't talk to men that they don't find appealing, right?
So there's male There's male attractiveness and there's female attractiveness. Um, is male attractiveness and female attractiveness in this society of equal value?
I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know. And I'm really thinking about it. I don't know. Here's what I'll say, and tell me what you think. Men feel like because the numbers are in their favor, their attraction to women is more valuable than the woman's attraction to them, because in their minds they can go get another one. But just because it's a large amount doesn't mean that those numbers are in your favor.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, when it comes to male attractiveness and female attractiveness, in this society still, most people assume the role of initiating first contact to be on the male.
I
And
agree.
the male then, traditionally speaking, is responsible for whatever expenses are associated with trying to make first contact. So in that way, if his role is initiation and responsibility of whatever the financial aspect it requires, her only really role at that point is to be attractive enough for him to want to incur that responsibility. What say you?
I think you are right, but there are always caveats to this. I don't know if I would let a man that I just met, let's say we make it to like the third or fourth date, there's something I'm going to pay for in there, right? Because we're both working professionals at this point. And we're now both enjoying each other's company. And, our friend who had the unfortunate incident with the police, he and I fight all the time. So when I meet people, even if I find them attractive or even if I don't, I always seek to be their friend. Like, can we be friends? Because there's a certain age, 35 and older maybe, we're not picking bad people generally, right? So this person who is coming to my life could possibly be a friend or could possibly, and that's what I look for first. Like, are we compatible enough to sit down and have a conversation? And can we laugh together? And do we mind each other's time and space? And if all of that goes well, then we can progress to other things. But I think in today's society, people go in. That's why I never date for marriage, right? I date for friendship. Because when you date for marriage, you overlook a lot of things because your goal is the marriage. And that's what you look for. Okay, she's the right height, she's the right size, she's saying the right things, she's good with her money. Okay, right. And all of those things are great. But what if she has a really bad attitude at 4:00 in the afternoon every day, no matter what? Can you live with that? Or what if she's ADD and she doesn't clean up and your house is cluttered every time you come in? Is that okay? And you don't know these things until you get married, because these things can be easily hidden in the dating cycle. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
So yeah, you bring some depth there, and as you were saying that, I see the logic. However, for the initial meeting, Most people aren't thinking far in advance like you are. Most people are just thinking event to event. And if the system is set up, the social etiquette is set up to where the traditional expectation is on the man, and his primary motivation at that point to take on that role of obligation is going to be how attractive he finds the female of his desire. So just by that definition, would that not make female attractiveness a commodity?
No, because they still have to be picked by the man, the way
Right.
it's set up right now.
Right.
So I can't be a commodity. Well, I can be a commodity, but if I'm not picked, then I'm not.
Well, no, not you per se, not
No,
the
I'm just saying.
the-
I'm just using.
yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but even using you,
Mhm.
it's not you, it's your attractiveness. So I'm kind of separating that out.
Okay.
It is your ability for attractiveness. And so that is what's going to make a man decide whether or not he's going to take that chance and make first contact and be willing to take on whatever economic responsibilities that are associated with that. We see it every day. It's you don't see well-to-do women going after initially desiring unattractive men, and men without means.
I think that depends on age and stage of life. Okay. I have seen very attractive women in their 20s who are successful pair with men who are not as attractive and have a lot of potential, and together they grow that potential. Now, once people get 40 and older, I don't see it as much.
Yeah, I know the dynamic you're speaking of, but that's not anything like the male traditionally courting the female. The woman today does not court the male. The woman today does not take the responsibility at first sight to say, hey brother, let me get them digits.
But don't you think women do things to allow men to come talk to them?
Exactly. The female
So
attractiveness.
I don't know if it's attractiveness. Sometimes I think it's attitude. Sometimes I think it's a look.
That's attractiveness.
Is it? Because when I
Yes.
think of attractive, I think just, the physical. I'm not thinking about
It's
the way I
it,
look at him being attractive to him.
it can be anything that's visual can be included in attractiveness. And so as far as the man, it's what we see. It's how you lock eyes onto him, or how you might flip your hair, or whatever. It can be a myriad of things, and women instinctively know these things. There's a lot of social science studies on how to tell when a woman finds you attractive. There are certain physical giveaways, as well as how to tell when a man finds a woman attractive. There are just some certain social scientists statistics that reveal who we are if we're aware of our environment. But for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
the man is the pursuer, the
Mm-hmm.
woman is the pursuee.
Mm-hmm.
He is 90% of his action motivation is based purely on visual sight. And women, I mean, even in all species, you see that that same situation. of behavior between males and females. That they use visual cues to connote attraction or
Okay.
rejection.
Mhm.
So in this society, we have monetized that
Really? Into the dating.
into the dating, and I would say even as it gets into marriage and divorce. But I do appreciate the nuance you brought out with regard to that can look different based on your social and economic level.
Hmm. And age.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because what I'll do at 20, I might not do at 40,
Mhm.
and definitely might not do at 60. So yeah, I really firmly believe that. Mhm. Do you think marriage is dying?
It statistically is.
Mhm.
Statistically, uh, it is on a downward trajectory. I
Mhm.
know in the work that I do, most of my work is with single parent families,
Mhm.
mostly maternal matriarch households. Um, so there's no doubt that there is the concept of family is going through a serious identity crisis.
So you know what? Like, I do you read The Atlantic?
No, I do not.
It's a wonderful, wonderful publication. It's very smart. Um, a few weeks ago, they talked about there were several articles. The focus was marriage and family,
Hmm.
and they talked about how after World War II, the United States created the image or the ideal image of family because they wanted these soldiers to come back and just not be single and listless. So they created the strong family, which was a mom, a dad, 2.5 kids. You get a
Hmm.
house and you get the white picket fence. Okay,
Hmm.
but the article talked about how damaging that image has been on our culture, not black or white, but the American culture.
American culture, right?
And it spoke about how nobody was prepared for the dysfunctional family, the people who stay together, but they fight and they do this and they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody prepared for what it would look like once women got their rights. Nobody prepared for the divorce. So, and how that ideal has created a sense of failure and loss for women more so than men, and for the children of divorce. And I just found it really interesting. But their take on it was we, the culture, need to look at families differently. So
Right,
if they are single with the children, that's still a family.
right.
It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman leading that family. They're still a family. They still get together. They still celebrate the holidays and do all the things. Um, it's just not a two-parent family. And I thought that was an interesting take on things.
Hmm. And I think that is definitely an impact, a byproduct or reflection of the current way of forming a union right now.
Hmm.
Uh, the way the family is looking today is a direct reflection of just how men and women connect in the first place and
Hmm.
today's attitudes about marriage. So that gets me into my last question before we close up.
Hmm.
For today, as a successful woman in America, what from the woman's perspective, what is the benefit for the today's successful woman to get married?
I don't know that there is one outside of companionship.
So, do you need marriage for companionship?
Mm-mm. You don't need it, but I think with marriage comes or should come with companionship, right?
Okay.
Because that's your person, and that's the person you are building and growing with. So, if you want to go on vacation, if you want to go on a concert, or don't make that person your everything. But
Mhm.
and my friends and I talk about this because a lot of us are divorced. And then the other half have never been married and they want to get married. But when I ask them, why do you want to get married? And they say, because it's something I want to experience. It's not a reason to get married, right? So I don't think so. I do have a friend who is over 60 and she is planning her wedding, her first wedding. And she's getting married for love. So I think it depends on the person, but overall, no.
And from a woman's perspective, what is the benefit for today's man to get married? From your perspective as a woman,
It depends on the man. I think studies show men live longer when they are partnered. So, and we take that to mean marriage. And I think that and their health is better when they are in a marriage or in a family unit. But I think today, as I sit here, that's it. Yeah. When we take all of the over romanticizing out, when I think about my male friends, most of them can cook. All of them know how to clean up. All of them know how to pay bills very well. They're very good with investments. Yeah, so they have all that they need.
interesting.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, as I hear you assessments,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing them from a non-judgmental perspective, and I'm playing the outcomes of today's attitudes towards marriage, and wonder, okay, so how does wealth get transferred? What does this mean for the raising of young men and women if we continue this trajectory of the current way of looking at marriage? Because clearly today's perspective is not one that is of a traditional sort.
Well, I think a lot
And
of things.
I'm not saying that for you to answer now because we're gonna be closing. But I
Mhm.
think when we come into part two, I want to pick up from there because there's a lot of ramifications from here, ramifications that we're suffering right now. Just because, even though it's not been stated consciously,
Mhm.
clearly, the mindset that you described is in existence, and it's having impact on how families are looking today.
But you know what? I think the biggest impact on marriage, and my friends say this, is that married people don't make marriage look sexy. They don't make it look fun, right? So when we're at work, and we're talking to people or our work friends, how's your husband? Oh, yeah, all right. We don't get we don't get the nice things that the husband did, right? So one of my friends, I really had to sit her down because I was like, you really have to tell me some nice things about your husband because I'm about to quit all of y'all.
Oh yeah. Yeah, all right.
So
Oh, that's classic. That is classic. That is classic. But that's a powerful statement. Married people don't say that again. They don't say that one more time. That's really
married
powerful.
people don't make marriage look sexy.
Yeah.
They talk about all the work, they talk about all the things, but they don't talk about the good things. And, they don't talk about the opportunities of wealth and what two can do versus one. So that might be a huge part of why marriage is in decline.
Okay. Well, I think that's the takeaway. And there's that might be the title of the next thing. That was good. That was good. That was good. Because there's a lot of power in the revelations of that statement. It's very like a lot of psychological energy there. So we need to explore that. So yeah, okay. Well, this has been a good discussion. I have enjoyed this podcast date with you, Doc Locks.
Well, thank you.
And it didn't cost me anything.
Nothing. See?
And I was still able to enjoy your beauty as well as your intellect. So
well, thank you.
I definitely benefited from this.
You're so funny.
Yeah. So next time we're going to have my co-host on here, and we were to have another set of panelists on here, but we lost them. Maybe this discussion of marriage just scared them off.
Well, one of them really wants to talk about marriage.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna bring him back, and we're gonna do this again. And thank God it's Friday.
Yes, amen.
So, yeah, and so all I can say to everybody, I know you're experiencing it. We have unseasonably warm part of the year, so stay cool, stay safe,
stay hydrated,
stay fresh. So, to all of you watchers, viewers, and listeners, have a great week, and until the next time we meet, we'll see you in the black space.